The Bible states that God told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac in Genesis 22:2, referring to him as your only son, whom Abraham loved. Hebrews 11:17-19 also confirms this, showing that Abraham was ready to offer Isaac, the son of God's promises. So, it's clear that Isaac was the intended sacrifice.
I disagree. Isaac can't be seen as the only son unless Ishmael was dead or disowned by Abraham.
But remember, Ishmael was born to a slave woman, while Isaac was born to Sarah, Abraham's legitimate wife. In Genesis 17:19, God says his covenant will be through Isaac, which is a key reason he is viewed as the intended sacrifice.
Remember, Deuteronomy emphasizes that the rights of the firstborn must be respected, no matter the mother. Before Isaac was born, Abraham understood that Ishmael would be the one to inherit, as stated in Deuteronomy 21:17, which says one must acknowledge his unloved wife's son as the firstborn and grant him a double share. Abraham never questioned Ishmael's ability to inherit, evident when both Abraham and Ishmael were circumcised together under the covenant.
However, the Quran doesn't mention Ishmael in this context.
That's true, but Surah As-Safat 37:112 implies that God announced that Isaac would be born after the trial. For this test to hold true significance, similar to Job's trials, Abraham would need to be childless for it to genuinely challenge his faith.
Many theologians see Isaac's near sacrifice as foreshadowing Jesus Christ's sacrifice. John 3:16 describes Jesus as God's only son given for humanity, linking Isaac and Jesus in a larger divine narrative.
I get your point, but we must acknowledge that Ishmael was Abraham's only son for 13 years before Isaac arrived. So in a way, Ishmael held the title of only son until Isaac came along. It's possible God was referring to Ishmael when he spoke to Abraham, and he also promised to bless Ishmael.
I'm not fully convinced. Other New Testament verses affirm Isaac's importance. For example, James 2:21-23 states that Abraham was justified by offering his son Isaac on the altar. Romans 9:7-9 also clarifies that it is through Isaac that offspring will be reckoned.
I respect your belief in the Bible, but as Muslims, we hold that the Quran confirms and rectifies earlier texts. Abraham desired an heir and chose Hagar to bear a child. Sarah proposed this arrangement, leading to Ishmael's birth. Firstborn rights are important. Normally, a secondborn can only receive these rights through deceit or purchase, much like Jacob did with Esau. Ishmael represented Abraham's hope for his legacy before Isaac was born, and he remained Abraham's son throughout. This is evident when both sons buried Abraham together in Genesis 25:9.
I appreciate your perspective, but I find it difficult to believe that a slave's son would be chosen for sacrifice. Genesis 17:19 clearly indicates that God's covenant will be established through Isaac, underscoring his important role.
Let's agree that polygamy was allowed in the Old Testament. The Bible mentions that Abraham took Hagar as a wife in Genesis 16:3. When the covenant was made, God blessed Ishmael too. At that moment, having an heir mattered more to Abraham than the covenant itself. He was just happy to have Ishmael. This is why God tested him, to see if he could give up his only heir.
I view the Bible as the true word of God, and I see a clear connection between the crucifixion of Jesus and Isaac's near sacrifice. However, I must acknowledge your valid points.
I understand Jesus is often linked to Isaac because of their shared lineage. However, we shouldn't forget that Jesus was born without a father, making it impossible to trace his lineage back to Abraham. If God saved Isaac at the last moment, it seems fair for him to save Jesus too, if we're comparing them.
I appreciate your insights. I've learned a lot from our discussion and plan to research more on this topic.
Thank you for your time. I've gained valuable insights from our conversation too. May God guide us both. Take care.